Luka was innocent. He was just in the wrong place, at the wrong time. That night, he was walking home from football practice, boots slung over his shoulder, sweat drying on his brow. The streetlights flickered, throwing long shadows on the pavement. It was unusual for him to be out that late. He never stayed out after dark. The delay in the arrival of his bus, and the awful traffic situation that evening would change his fate. He was just 20, full of promise and plans that didn't make it past that corner. Dozens of police arrived like thunder. Sirens. Blue lights everywhere, shouts everywhere. Someone had been robbed and seriously injured. Witnesses said the suspect had fled in his direction. Wrong face. Wrong night. Wrong life. By morning, Luka was in handcuffs. By the end of the month, he was a prisoner, processed, numbered, and forgotten inside a maximum security facility built to contain some of the world's most dangerous criminals and monsters. His mother, Catherine, didn't forget. She wrote letters, made phone calls, stood outside courthouse steps holding his photograph, her voice cracking through megaphones that no one wanted to hear. "He's innocent," she told them. "My son didn't do this." But in the noise of the system, truth is often the quietest thing in the room. He served 9 years. He had 6 months left. And then, one gray morning, came the knock. 2 officers stood at her door, hats in hand, faces rehearsed. "Ma'am, we're sorry. Your son passed away early this morning. Drug overdose. We tried, but we..." Catherine's knees gave way. The world went black before the sentence ended. Flashback, the boy and the monster. Luka was 20 when he was sentenced. A quiet boy with a soft voice and a clean heart. Inside the walls of San Vitor prison, innocence was currency no one could afford. To survive, you belonged to someone. Luka belonged to Dorgo Eduardo. Dorgo, a legend whispered through concrete corridors, was a mafia boss, a monster, a man whose empire of narcotics stretched across oceans. Wanted in the United States, Canada, and the UK, now serving 2 life sentences in Italy. Even behind bars, he ruled his world. Luka was his cellmate, his shadow, his runner, his boy. He feared and respected him in equal measure. Dorgo protected him, fed him, called him kid. In return, Luka fetched things, ran messages, did small favors. But he stayed away from the drugs, from the smuggling, from the network of drones that ferried poison across prison walls. Then came that evening. The prison had hosted its monthly interblock football game. For 1 hour, men became boys again. Luka scored a goal. Dorgo clapped him on the back. For a fleeting second, it felt like friendship. Later that night, when Luka returned to the cell, he found Lorenzo, Dorgo's right hand, waiting in the shadows. "You were seen talking to Russo," Lorenzo said quietly. "You know, Dorgo's rival. And now a package is missing." Luka's heart stuttered. "I didn't." "You don't steal from Dorgo Eduardo," Lorenzo interrupted, stepping closer. "You know what he'll do if you don't bring it back." Luka's throat closed. There was no defense against suspicion in Dorgo's world. Only punishment. That night, guards found him in his bunk, a needle in his arm, a note folded neatly in his palm. "I'm sorry, for what I have done." The handwriting was perfect. Too perfect. The ink was dry long before it reached his fingers. Retribution. 2 years later. Dorgo still ran his empire from behind bars. A shipment was due that night, a drone delivery, the usual kind that kept his kingdom alive. He didn't know it had been delayed. Didn't know someone had been pulling the strings. When the drone finally arrived, it hovered obediently, dropping its payload into his hands. Inside, wrapped in brown paper, was a single note. "This is for my son you killed." A faint beep followed. 5 seconds. Then, light. Fire. Silence. The explosion ripped through the cell block like Judgment Day. Outside, parked just beyond the prison wall, Catherine watched the flames rise. The night pulsed orange, the same color as her grief. She didn't cry. She didn't tremble. She just stood there, the wind pressing her coat against her legs, watching the monster burn. She turned to the man beside her and whispered, "Job done." They got into the car and drove into the darkness, two shadows fading into the road, leaving behind smoke, ash, and justice long overdue. Weeks later, the news broke. The notorious drug lord Dorgo Eduardo is alive and in coma. Lorenzo is in critical condition in the hospital. Catherine listened to the news. My Luca didn't have a second chance. She muttered quietly to herself, tears streaming down her face, staring at Luca's picture frame hanging on the wall. So the explosion hadn't finished them, she said sadly. Meanwhile, across Milan, Lorenzo lay in a hospital bed, his body broken, speech fractured, ears deaf to most of the world. He'd lost his fingers, his voice a rasp of ruined syllables. He tried to tell the police what had been written on the package before it exploded, but his words were trapped in a mouth that barely worked. "For my son." They wrote it down. No one understood. The journalist reporting the case called it a mystery wrapped in vengeance. One evening, a new doctor entered Lorenzo's room. Tall, calm, gloved. A stethoscope around her neck. Catherine looked around the one bedroom where Lorenzo was hanging on to life. There was no CCTV camera. No one has seen her entering the room. She closed the door softly behind her. The monitors beeped, steady and slow. Lorenzo's eyes widened. He recognized her. He tried to scream, but only air came out. Catherine leaned close and whispered, "My son didn't have a second chance." Then she pressed the syringe into his fore. The clear fluid ran cold. She injected pure cocaine. It was 100% pure and merciless. "This is for my son," she said in cold voice. He was innocent. He never had a second chance. He was in the wrong place, at the wrong time. Lorenzo's eyes rolled back. The machine screamed. By the time the nurses rushed in, the doctor was gone. Only the scent of alcohol and death remained.